the square. Today we're going to look at completing the square when a is greater than 1. And it's different. So I want to start out by trying to review, what was the process when a was 1? So what were the steps that we went through when a equaled 1? What was the first step? Just go ahead and shout them out.
Move the constant to the other side. Find
Okay.
1/2 of b.
Well, wait to say the next step until I've written the first one. But move constant to
Do you have to take
the
notes on
other.
this?
You probably don't have to write this down because you already have it written down, right? Okay, move constant to the other side. And then I heard find 1/2 of b. So this is the step where we're going to be adding something in. So if this is step 1, we're going to have a different step 2. And then step 3 will be find 1/2 of b. So you might want to make a note somehow in your notes for today that the extra step comes between steps 1 and 3. Okay? What is the step after finding 1/2 of b?
You add that to both. Oh yeah, square it and then add that to both sides.
So we square step 3 and add it to both sides. What's our next step?
If the extra step comes between 1 and 3, would that just be step 2?
Yeah, it is.
Step right?
Well, what I was saying was you don't need to rewrite all these steps in your notes because you already have all these ones.
Yeah.
But you might want to make a note.
So
That.
it would come between 1 and 2, like
Yeah.
old steps.
Like of the old steps, it would become between 1 and 2, right?
Sure, of the old ones, yeah.
Okay.
Then
Step 1.
Okay, after we square the number and add it to both sides, what do?
You factor the side with x and then you square root both sides.
Okay, factor the side with x, 6, square root both sides. What do we have to remember when we do this?
Add plus or minus.
Right, plus or minus.
And then isolate the side with x.
I'm going to just write it, and this is technically not like a mathematical term, but plus or minus square root both sides, right? And then what do we do?
And then isolate x this side. X.
Isolate x. Okay, so this only works because when we factor, we have a perfect square. But I just want to think about this problem for a second. Don't write this part down. But if I had this, right? 1 equals 3x squared plus 12x. If I found 1/2 of b, that's 6. And if I squared it, that's 36, right? Don't write this down.
You can switch them though.
What would be wrong with this?
there's something in front of A, or there's AA.
Okay, there's something in front of a, but what does that mean? If I were to try to factor this, would it be a perfect square?
No.
No, right? If I did x plus 6 squared, that's not going to equal this.
Oh, don't you need a number on the end? You could take out the
Because
3.
there's this 3. So what we have to do is exactly what you guys just said. But we're not maybe going to do it when you think we're going to do it.
On the end?
We're going to do it right now.
What?
We're going to divide by 3 right now. Okay? So the first step, move constant to the other side. So we add 1 to both sides. And we end up with 1 equals 3x squared plus 12x. There's a blank there. Okay, but actually what we're going to do now is divide by a. Divide both sides by a. So a is 3, so I divide everything by 3. So I end up with 1/3 equals x squared plus 4x. And we'll leave a blank. Now I can just go back to the process that I know.
Oh, yeah.
But you can see why it was so important last night to practice all of those completing the squares with fractions, right? We're going to end up with fractions quite often because we're dividing by whatever a is. Okay, so what is our next step after this? Yeah.
Take half of
Okay, which is, and then,
square,
which is,
plus 4.
and what do I do?
And then add 4 to the other side.
Add 4 to both sides. Okay, now here what I like to do is combine these like terms. So 4, oops, I probably should have written it like that, right? 4 plus 1/3.
Is
4
5
thirds.
thirds.
5 thirds?
How many thirds is 4? It's 12 thirds, right?
Why is
So
it
I-
12? 13 thirds?
So what I'm doing is this, right? 4 times 3 over 3.
Oh, got it. Never mind.
Right? 4 is equal to 12 thirds. So then this is 13 thirds. Equals,
Why is it 13 thirds? You said it was 12 thirds.
No, because then he
no,
added.
4 is 12
Oh.
thirds. And then we have one
No,
more
wait,
third.
oh, okay.
Okay, and then we square, then we factor this. X plus 2 squared.
And then we square both sides, or square.
Take the square root of both sides. So then I have let's write it like this. The square root of 13, and I'll write my plus or minus there, over the square root of 3 equals x plus 2.
And then you keep the 2, like you do it by the plus and minus.
Subtract the 2, and I'm going to write it out front. So I would probably write this one like this. X equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 13 over the square root of 3.
So wait, Nate, could you write it with just one square root sign, like have the 13 and the 3 both in the same square root sign, or do you have to do
You could,
one for each?
yeah. Technically what we would actually do next, did you guys do this with Gary? I don't know. You would have to multiply by the square root of 3 because we need to rationalize our denominator. But, so we won't worry about that for today. You could just leave your answer like that. I think it is good to break up the square root though, to answer that question. Okay, break up your square root. Yeah.
So like the problem started out just with 0 being on the left side, but it's okay if we switch.
Yeah, because I was really confused with it.
Yeah, you can write 0 on either side. Whichever side you want it to be on.
A parabola of plot.
Alright,
Have to do it tomorrow.
let's do another example. So, what if I had something like this? 4x squared plus 8x minus 5. Alright. So again, it's just this process, right? What is our first step?
That side.
Yeah, add 5 to both sides. What do I get?
4x squared plus 8x blank equals 5.
Okay. But now I don't really need the blanks quite yet, but that's okay.
And then you divide it all by 4.
Yeah, because I'm going to divide it all by 4. So then what do I have?
X squared plus 2x equals 5 over 4.
And now I really want the blanks, right?
Or you could just write it in order.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of the times you're not gonna like, cause in both the problems that we did, the term in front of x,
The B.
yeah, the b was divisible,
Yeah.
but that's not what's gonna happen.
Not always. Okay. What do I do next?
Square or find half of b.
Which is
1.
1,
And we're gonna square it.
which is
1.
okay.
Add it to both sides.
Okay, now what is 5 fourths plus 1? 1 is how many fourths?
Wait, no, wouldn't you just do 1 and then 5
4
fourths?
fourths.
1 is 4 fourths.
But can't you just
9 fourths.
We're gonna do them as improper fractions because when we do the square root, mixed numbers are very weird to square root. Okay, so now I've got x squared. Oh wait, I'm gonna factor this side. What do I get when I factor this?
X plus 1 squared.
X plus 1 squared equals
9 fourths.
9 fourths.
Then you do square root.
And I could square root both sides. End up with
X.
plus 1 equals
3 over 2
close.
plus or minus
Plus
3.
or minus 3 over 2. Hey, that's not bad. Now what do I do?
Add or subtract 1.
Subtract 1. And in this case I'm not done because I can actually do this.
What?
What is negative 1 plus 3 halves?
do you have to though?
Yeah. No?
Or 1.
Negative 1 is how many halves? If we want to add fractions, we want them to have the same denominator.
Oh, it's 2, 2.
So negative 1, I'm going to write it up here.
2 over 2, so it's
So
6
x
and 5
equals
over 2.
negative 2 over 2 plus or minus 3 over 2.
So it's 1 half.
Yeah, so negative 2 plus 3 is 1 over 2. Or negative 2 minus 3 is... What's negative 2 minus
Why
3?
is it negative?
Negative 1 half.
Because then 1 was negative.
Oh,
Negative
yeah.
1 half.
Negative 2 minus
no,
3?
negative 2 fifths.
What's negative 2 minus 3?
Oh, that's
Oh,
negative 5.
negative 5.
Negative 5 over 2.
Negative
And I'm done.
5
Oops.
halves.
X equals. So I'm from there to here. Now, if you think about this, this came out to be fractions, right? Rational numbers. There is another way of factoring this, which is if we thought of factors of negative 20 that add up to 8, we could have used Gary's trick, right, to solve this one, which is probably easier. But remember, like the last one we did, not all of them are possible to solve that way. So that's why we're practicing completing the square.
So for
I
the-
do want to show you one thing though that will make completing the square way easier.
Me, how do you tell, like, if you get a problem, what to do, like, which trick?
I would only do completing the square if I had to. If someone
Like, how do
said
you tell?
you have to solve this with
Oh,
completing the
okay.
square. Okay, so what we're practicing right now is leading up to deriving the quadratic formula. Once you know the quadratic formula, I would use that to solve most quadratic equations. Okay? But I want to show you guys where that comes from. Yeah.
So on the homework tonight, you want us to use this.
Yes. And it says it.
The one
So
we just-
here's what I want to show you though. 3x squared minus 6x minus 24 equals 0. So this will kind of naturally happen as we go through the steps, but there's something that's a little different about this one compared to the last one.
It's divisible by 3.
Yeah, all of these numbers are divisible by 3, right?
So why don't you just divide it in the beginning?
Yeah, so we could just kind of divide it in the beginning. I mean, it's not really any different, except that it's sort of similar to what that we did when we were learning factoring. Yeah, when we factored out a greatest common factor, right? This is more similar to that than to like completing the square. So if I divide everything by 3, then I just have x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals, what's 0 divided by 3?
0.
Oh, 0. Okay. And then it's just like a regular completing the square. You You see, I mean, there's not really any difference. Like, you're gonna be dividing by 3 no matter what you do. But I think it's good to just observe that if I have everything divisible by 3, it's sort of simpler, right? It kind of simplifies itself. Okay, so what would I do next? Let's solve this one.
Move the constant to the
Move the constant!
and then you find half of b.
So we've got x squared minus 2x equals 8. Half of b is what?
Negative 1.
Negative 1.
And then
1
plus-
negative 1 squared is
One.
plus 1.
And then x minus 1 equals 8, or x minus 1 squared equals
We almost forgot that, right?
9.
Let's not forget it. Okay, x minus 1 squared, correct, equals what?
9.
9.
And then you square root
Square
everything,
root both
and
sides.
It's x minus 1 equals 3. and
Equals what?
3.
3? You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Square root of 9 is 3.
Why am I hesitating?
Oh, because
Oh,
it could be
it could be
negative.
negative.
It could be a negative 3, so what? How could I
Plus
show?
or minus negative.
Yeah,
And then so it's plus, I mean, minus 1, plus 1, plus 1.
plus
So
1.
x equals
Negative
4 or
One.
negative 2. Or
No,
x
it's
Okay.
1 plus or minus, Dee Dee.
1 plus or minus 3, but yeah, so that is 4 or 2?
No, negative 4.
Wait, isn't it negative?
No.
What's
no.
1 plus
Sorry.
3? 4.
4.
What's 1 minus 3?
2. No, not negative 2.
Just
1
2.
minus
1 minus 3?
Oh.
It's negative 2.
Negative 2, right?
No, I was.
Do you
I
see
was-
why?
Yeah.
1 minus 3.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it's helpful to write these out. This symbolism is a little weird, right? Like the plus or minus thing. It's a little
No,
strange.
what threw me off was the equal sign. I thought it was a negative.
Oh. So it's just my sloppy handwriting.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you think was negative, Dee Dee?
The equal
Oh,
sign.
yeah.
Questions on these?
This one was a little far forward.
Questions?
No.
Just a process.
Are we going to get to do our